where does AI and the tools it powers fit into the recruiting lifecycle? So a bit more of a strategic look at the topic. And we are very fortunate to have Charles Hips, the CEO of Olio. Olio is one of our sponsors at this event, so we are very grateful for their participation. Charles is going to do this session for us, so I'm now going to turn the platform over to him. Charles, welcome.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes, we can hear you, Charles. Have you got
Great.
your camera on? Yeah, got your camera as well. Good. Nice to have you here.
Indeed. I just said on mute. Thank you very much for introducing me. There was a fantastic, introduction, but it was also a wonderful talk by Melissa and Athena. I hope I can live up to that and follow it. So let me just see if I can share my screen and get the technology working, and you can tell me, do I want to continue? Yes, let's try that. And maybe let's choose that, see what happens. And then let's see what happens if I go into present mode. And
you're looking good, Charles.
Wonderful. I think you mean the presentation is looking good. I'm looking typically scruffy. Anyhow, I shall get on with the show. So, as Peter very kindly said, where does AI and the tools it powers fit into the end-to-end recruiting process? I love talking about talent acquisition technology. I'm here to help, so please do ask questions if I can be of any help. Otherwise, I'll proceed through the presentation and take questions at the end. So, as Peter said so eloquently, I'm Charles Hips. I'm the CEO and founder of Olio. Hopefully you've heard of Olio. We're one of the world's leading providers of end-to-end talent acquisition platforms. We're fortunate enough to work with some of the world's most talented organizations, the likes of Amazon, Morgan Stanley, and many, many, many more. And I say that genuinely, really, we can only deliver on our mission through our clients. So it is real privilege and honor to work with them. So please do connect with me on LinkedIn. Hopefully you can see my URL to my LinkedIn profile. So what am I going to talk to you? I'm going to just quickly touch on the challenges facing recruiting today. I'm going to talk about how we are enabling recruiters and recruiting. I'm going to give some examples, high level, of AI in action across the whole recruiting funnel. And then I'm going to kind of go into a little bit more detail on AI and its impact. I'm going to touch on two particular themes. One is about how you can use it to maintain great recruitment experiences. And the second one is really about, for me, AI is really just a way of leveraging data to make better decisions. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about that. So onwards and upwards. Quick kind of challenges facing the recruiters today. I will kind of go through this pretty rapidly. So I guess, a little tongue in cheek, but we're all high volume recruiters now. With the pandemic and the levels of unemployment, all of our clients have across the board seen massive increases in volumes. Our clients are typically dealing with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of applications every month. And we've seen increases as much as 1,300%. So whether you're looking for that very specialist role and looking through databases to find those particular candidates you want, or social media sites, or whether you are doing a form of volume recruitment and candidates actively sending you their applications. Across the board, all of our clients are struggling and dealing with exceptionally high volumes these days. I guess this is both a reflection of the state of the economy, but also underlying it is also some behavioral change. What Gartner has referred to as the change from the committed candidate to the casual candidate. And you can see kind of in the top one, the more traditional candidate was doing its research, shortlisting jobs, applying to jobs, and then speaking with recruiters. And now, if you look at the bottom set of arrows, there's more behavior that is applied to the jobs, speak to the recruiters, research, and then shortlist. So, many of our clients are, dealing with this increased volume because of this change kind of candidate behavior that is putting a lot of applications up front. Another kind of key trend amongst our clients is we see the number of recruiting steps per candidate has absolutely skyrocketed in recent years, up to as many as, if not more than 91. I'm sure we have clients who have many, many, many more steps in their process than that. It's just the complexity of recruitment, the differences in processes you need to take candidates through has risen dramatically. At the same time, typically recruitment teams are smaller, and there's a lot of competing priorities to juggle, from the tight deadlines to high candidate volumes, keeping candidates engaged, cutting candidates out of the process, but also managing candidates falling out of the process, and more complex interview and offer processes. I think Melissa was saying she really wanted to tackle some of those processes and bring automation and AI to bear in reducing the workload there. Another kind of major trend that we see, obviously, is that organizations are more and more concerned about reducing bias in their talent acquisition processes. Certainly a trend and a request that has come more and more to the fore, and I'm going to be talking about that. It's a key part of our mission in improving diversity and driving, not only the recruitment of great, but also diverse talent. So, we find our clients and recruiters, dealing with multiple challenges from, how do we choose the candidates for interview? How do we maintain a great experience? How do we nurture your talent pipeline for the future? How do we compete at high velocity for the best candidates? How do we not let D&I fall by the wayside? And how, if we're suddenly inundated with huge volumes, how do we find time to reduce the administrative strain on recruiters so they can be more, strategic? And many, many, many more challenges. But that's all I wanted to talk about in terms of challenges, kind of just set a little bit of the scene. Just moving on to talk about recruitment enablement. How do we enable recruiters? How do we enable recruitment to function effectively? For us, the absolute key to recruitment enablement is about leveraging data and automation to achieve new efficiencies and better hiring outcomes. It's about moving away from some of those kind of gut-made decisions to decisions that are informed by the data you have. And it's about building that into your kind of day-to-day recruitment processes, as well as your strategic processes. And it's about automating the repetitive tasks. And there's a parallel in kind of recruitment enablement. We see it as kind of the next wave of really taking recruitment to the next level and supporting recruiters in the way they deserve to be supported. It kind of parallels, what has happened in sales enablement. So we see this kind of trend very much paralleling, as we've seen before in other technological trends, with following on that of sales and marketing. So again, what does recruitment enablement allow us as recruiters to achieve? Hopefully the move from kind of a more reactive recruitment to a more enabled recruitment, from a scenario, if we just run through these, where the alignment between recruitment and business is not as good as it could be to one where insights are used to achieve strong alignment between recruitment and the business. That, if the decisions are based on data and we bring the business along with us, this hugely helps in aligning the two. Moving from, a lack of insights into recruitment to improvements based on insights, from inconsistent to consistent processes, from minimal automation to a high level of automation to drive efficiencies, from little or no use of data or AI to a full use of data and AI, and a scenario where diversity inclusion is an active strategy rather than a statement about what we'd like to achieve. So moving on to some examples of AI in action across the recruitment funnel to kind of bring this to life. I'm just going to go through a kind of typical recruitment funnel from awareness, consideration, selection, assessment, and then end to end. If we look at the awareness, one of the kind of absolute, key use cases in awareness is what we refer to as intelligent writing. To attract a wider talent pool. What you can see in this animated part of our platform is that as you write a job advert, the platform is actively telling you how to reword the advert in an inclusive manner. And this is what I mean about using data, and I mean about embedding it into operational recruitment and automation. If we think about this, we could produce a graphic and a report that tells you which words are putting off candidates from different kind of backgrounds, and you could read that report and you could then figure it out. But here, what's going on is that's not a very effective way of bringing data and automation and AI and intelligence into operational recruitment. This is a much better way, where as somebody does something operational, writes a job, that data is being used to inform and nudge the recruiter in the right direction. Moving on from intelligent writing, intelligent advertising is another kind of key area where AI is being used, to automate and optimize job advertising. We are in our platform distributing jobs to network of websites based on performance-based pay-per-click approach, and AI and automation is being used to automatically target the right sites, pay the right price, and optimize that spend by taking down job ads when there are sufficient applications. Coming to the kind of engagement or consideration phase, clients are using chatbots. So here we're using natural language processing to understand the questions that candidates are asking, delivering recruitment in a kind of mobile, chat-friendly way to allow candidates either to chat text to apply, to chat to search jobs, or chat to access frequently asked questions. I think it also has a big part to play if we talk about the consideration and engagement phase in what I would call intelligent search and match. And this is about using AI to match candidates to jobs. This is either in allowing recruiters to quickly search social media or job sites to identify the candidates that are going to perform well and are diverse within your organization. Or it's about allowing them to quickly identify talent in talent banks, or indeed it's about presenting to the candidates the jobs in your organization that match their needs and requirements. Another really good use case of AI automation and enablement in this end-to-end thing is what we call intelligent engagement, which is all about delivering the right content at the right time to the right candidates. It's about personalizing those messages. In this particular case, it's a police force who's a client of ours who employs 50,000 police officers, men and women. And what they found was that there was very high dropout of female candidates at certain parts of the process. And we discovered that by personalizing the message, at a certain stage to the female candidates and engaging with their concerns about whether they fitted in the organization, we were able to massively increase the number of women who continued from that stage into the next stage, and in turn have a significant impact on the diversity of their organization. Moving on from the engagement or consideration phase, selection, absolutely a key place where AI, intelligence, and automation enablement can be used to understand and optimize the quality and diversity of hires. So what do I mean here? So within our platforms, real time, AI is reviewing the way humans are making decisions on candidates. And by reviewing the way humans are making decisions, it actually understands what qualities recruiters, line managers are looking for when they hire candidates. At the same time, it's looking at how those candidates end up, or eventually hires end up, how they perform in job. So it's first of all identifying what factors are being used to select candidates. Then it's understanding whether those factors in any way correlate with quality, the performance of candidates in job. And it's also simultaneously looking at the correlation of those factors with diversity. And having done this kind of real-time piece of analysis and understanding of what's going on in your organization, it then makes a recommendation for a better way for your organization to make hiring decisions on who's going to come to interview, that balances both making sure you hire great and diverse talent. So there's obviously a very sophisticated piece of analysis going on in doing that, but from a recruiter perspective or a line manager perspective, ultimately it becomes a star rating and a recommendation, a way of nudging people to make the right selection decisions. If we kind of move on to the assessment phase, there's all kinds of ways that automation and AI and intelligence can help in this phase. The first one I kind of picked on was a kind of slight departure from some of the others, and on maybe ones you don't think about straight away, but it's actually about, and I do see AI and automation really supporting this, but we're facilitating humans in reaching the outcome they want to reach. And in this particular case, we're talking about facilitating unbiased human decision making. This is really based on behavioral economics. And what behavioral economics has shown, for example, is that if you show recruiters or line managers information about a candidate that actually is not information that is correlated or determines how someone performs in your organization, then irrespective of people's understanding that that information is superfluous to actually selecting whether somebody is a high quality candidate, that they use that information and it biases their decision making. And obviously the classic use case here is the one where dozens of resumes were sent out with different names on, and the name had an impact on who was selected, a very drastic impact on the name, on who was selected. So one of the ways AI can support is actually by removing superfluous information from resumes. Typically, it's at least the name, but it can be other information. We call it here name blinding. We can also use recruitment enablement platforms to allow panel-based decision-making. Again, research shows that independent decision-making, multiple decision makers making a decision independently and then coming together to ratify that decision ends up with a much, much better and unbiased decision, a decision that drives both performance and diversity. And then the last innovation that I could suggest that could be delivered is what I call response-focused screening. This is talking about what behavioral economists refer to as the halo effect. If I make a very good answer to the first question, it actually influences how you think about me in terms of my answers to the second and third questions. And similarly, if it's not a question, but it's a piece of information about me, if I put a very good foot forward, it actually biases how you think about the other piece of information I give you. And similarly, if I put my very bad foot forward, then it also biases how you think about me. And so what's considered to be good practice is rather than looking at a candidate to start with in terms of all of their answers, is to look at the answer to question one or one piece of information about a candidate in the context of all the other candidates. And then looking at the next piece of information in the context of all the candidates, rather than having this halo effect. So those are some of the ways that automation, AI, and intelligence can facilitate unbiased human decision-making. We can, of course, also use AI to do some of the screening and scoring if your organization is ready to take that plunge. I don't know if you're aware, but SAT papers are humanly scored, but with the aid of natural language processing that is suggesting scores, and then humans are reviewed. And we have found that we can write algorithms that can score open-ended answers, and they score them more accurately. Although a smaller proportion of high-quality people are rejected accidentally, can score them more reliably. And of course, there are huge efficiency gains. And if anyone's interested, we have lots of case studies on this, which we could happily share. And then if we just come to the sort of end of the funnel, I just thought this was a good place to talk about descriptive analytics as well. I'm a big fan of descriptive analytics. My experience of AI is that sometimes if the data isn't right, people can come to the wrong conclusions. And therefore, first of all, describing what the data says is kind of a really important step in the equation. If you can explain the data and understand what's going on, then you can learn sensible things from it. In this particular case, we're talking about hiring equitable results. This particular screenshot is showing, it's showing, if you look at the blue and the gray bars, the blue bars are what is the proportion of ethnic groups in the applicant pool. You can see that's column 1, and then column 2 is the proportion in the hired pool. And you look at that and you look at the blue bars and you go, is that good? Is that bad? We need to provide some context. And so what we're doing is also in the gray bars presenting the context, which are benchmarks. And those benchmarks are calculated and derived using analytical techniques that are derived from AI and used in AI, and the presentation of the right groups are using that. So it's another kind of good use case of using intelligence to drive great outcomes by showing not only your own data, but also that data in the context of pertinent benchmarks. So that was a kind of few examples. As I said, now I just want to dive into a little deeper into a couple of areas that are kind of really important. That I think recruitment enablement and intelligence and AI can have a big impact on. The first of which is making sure the recruitment experience is a great experience. this first slide really just says that, candidate engagement, and in fact, I would say engagement with everybody, whether that be your team, employees, hiring managers, matters, more than ever, obviously in these times of huge uncertainty. If I think about my own employees, some of them have had COVID, some of them have relatives and friends who've died from COVID. Others of them are struggling with working while also making sure their children are getting home learning, and others are just sitting there waiting for the current surge in COVID to reach them. So, I think, it applies that more than ever, it's important that we, cherish our human interactions and look after our candidates and our employees and our hiring managers. I think, in that vein, I think also, never before has it been worse to have a one size, fits all approach. As I said, we're all in different circumstances and we all have different challenges and we all have different needs. And therefore, engaging with everybody in the same way just doesn't work anymore. And we have the tools not to do so, as we talked about. You can drive, better outcomes, through tailored processes. We are huge supporters of the idea that you need processes that fit your organization and fit your different recruitment streams. What we find is if the technology doesn't fit around your organization, then people aren't enabled by the technology. In fact, they do their recruitment outside of the technology. And if they do their recruitment outside of the technology, then there is no way that you're going to have great data on which to make good decisions. And so having a platform which allows people, to work in and they want to work in and, aids them kind of real time so that actually they want to be in the platform is really important. I think, as I kind of talked about earlier, where we were, changing the messaging for female candidates, to ensure that they didn't drop out the process for that police force. Again, we're nurturing candidates. We should all use, timely and inclusive content, that, is the right tone for that particular candidate, their profile, their hiring stage, and obviously is authentic to our organization and on brand. Obviously, intelligent engagement, as we called it, can completely support you in doing that rather than having you personally, with every interaction having to edit and change that message. Recruiters are often stuck in tactics and fighting fires. The average recruiter spends an awful lot of time scheduling interviews, but I mean, the average recruiter spends an awful lot of time potentially doing administrative tasks generally. I think, as Melissa Ababi was saying, I think it was that kind of whole interview piece and scheduling that she wanted to look at next in order to reduce that burden. So, leverage automation to reduce your workload and your team's workload. That can happen, as I talked about, across the funnel. Take care of yourself and your team. If you're overworked and busy, dealing with a volume, that's kind of hard to do so. But this also is not just to kind of your immediate recruitment team. It's also about hiring managers. You can take a huge burden off for hiring managers, whether that be about automating the interview scheduling or providing the information about candidates in an automated and relevant face, or providing them with a mobile app. There's lots of ways that you can support your hiring managers. And ultimately, do what, Gartner has advised in terms of enabling recruiters to become, true trusted advisors, talent advisors, remove the repetitive administrative tasks, allow them to, build those relationships they need in order to align and understand the whole, hiring manager and business needs, and also allow them to, make those kind of strategic long-term decisions, which are so essential to getting us out of the kind of weeds, putting that automation and data-driven insights to use. So that was about how we can use AI, intelligence, automation, and enablement to make sure that the whole process is kind of engaging and appropriate. I just wanted to quickly touch on how we can use those tools to make sure we leverage data to make better decisions. I mean, for me, AI and automation are just perhaps a very advanced form of leveraging data. All AI really is a form of analytics. It's analyzes data and learns from that data in much the same way as we might, at a much simpler level, analyze data and produce a report. AI and automation is very much just an example of leveraging data to make better decisions. As Peter Drucker said, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And this seems to be a real theme again. Lots of recruiters are talking about using data to automate recruiting decisions, and making it a priority this year. A lot of them are on a sort of route to, or a path to increasing the datafication of recruitment, increasing the use of data to drive recruitment in order to drive greater efficiencies and effectiveness by leveraging data in new areas that they hadn't before, applying data science to provide new insights and recommendations, to automate tasks, to try and change their organization to be, even more evidence-led instead of intuition, and to generally create a culture shift in recruitment. It's really important to know your baseline and how to improve, to bring together, relevant data to complete the picture, know your metrics, and share those insights with the business to gain buy-in and drive change. A really good example of putting the data to work is about this example I talked about under intelligent selection in pinpointing great diverse talent. Again, a large proportion admit that hiring quality is their greatest challenge, and yet we don't seem to be making a lot of progress against it. Harvard Business Review highlighted the failure of recruitment transformation is that employers are missing the forest for the trees. They largely ignore the ultimate goal, making the best possible hires. I think because of the nature of recruitment and the fact that hiring managers are asking us to fill jobs as quickly as possible, it's easy to lose sight. I know very few recruitment organizations who are really and truly measured on the quality of the hires. They're much more likely to be measured on the speed of filling positions, the efficiency, the cost. And yet, CEOs are telling us that, higher quality is their biggest single challenge. So somehow we need to align the two. And we think we have some fantastic techniques. We think that AI offers some fantastic techniques to do that. According to aptitude research, companies that use data to automate decision-making are twice as likely to improve the quality of hire. And, as we said, when we're talking about intelligent selection, these analytical techniques really can completely change the way you understand your selection and you actually select candidates. They can provide very clear insights into how decisions are really being made in your organization on hires, on who's selected for interview. It can relate those decision-making factors to diversity and to performance in job, and help steer the organization very quickly to a better way of making decisions that leads to great and diverse talent being hired. If we kind of just moving on from that, I think, again, today's world, employers with job openings just do have an incredible opportunity now to win, great talent. If I look again at our own organization and we look at our recent hires, I mean, all my team is great, but some of the quality of the people we're hiring at the moment are exceptional. I mean, really exceptional. Obviously, it's become much more of an employer's marketplace. And so, if you apply the right techniques in selecting people, you really can hire some amazing diverse talent into your organizations. And then just to kind of to summarize, looking again across the whole recruitment funnel, recruitment can really be enabled by AI, the use of data and automation to achieve new efficiencies and better hiring outcomes in order to reduce the burden on recruiters throughout the recruitment funnel. And again, we just quickly go through that funnel. We talked about debiasing job descriptions and automating job ad posting. We talked about nurturing and engaging candidates, with the right content at the right time, stopping them dropping out of the process or encouraging them to apply. We talked about using it to select and score candidates while avoiding bias. We talked about automating interview scheduling, feedback and assessment, automating offer workflows and automating pre-onboarding tasks, and of course, the whole kind of insights that these tools can give you to drive great outcomes. I want to just kind of leave you with a slightly different perspective, but kind of similar. I think the figure is something like 8 billion. 8 billion is spent on diversity training worldwide each year in order to try and get us to the organizations with less bias, including recruitment. And all the studies show, and there are loads of studies. I think I read one study that was surveying 1,000 different examples of this, show that this kind of diversity training is at best inconclusive. The impact is inconclusive, and at worst, actually, it worsens the situation. And there was an article just a couple of weeks ago about a very large organization who, on the basis of that advice, had stopped their diversity training, which is probably the right thing since they're spending a lot of money on it, but it has no impact. But the article was saying, well, and it was written actually by, or it's a reflection on by one of the researchers who'd written the research showing that this training, this unconscious bias training, had very little impact. What the thing was, okay, well, it's fine that you've stopped it, but what are you doing? Because they'd stopped it, but they hadn't replaced it with anything. And our view is that you should replace it with a data-driven approach, and that there is, in this slide deck that I've taken you through, actually a data-driven end-to-end recruitment diversity tech stack, which will nudge your organization in a direction and measure your organization's progress in that direction in real time, and therefore, what's the word? Potentially much more effective than some of these other means. And if we just kind of go through that tech stack, obviously we've got the intelligent writing, which is encouraging inclusive writing. We've got the intelligent engagement, which is delivering the right engaging content based on people's profiles. In the case I gave, stopping the female candidates or encouraging the female candidates to continue in the process, and indeed drastically reducing the dropout rate. We've got intelligent selection, which is about understanding how your decisions are being made and their correlation with bias. And so that's suggesting better ways and monitoring real time whether those better ways are actually still introducing bias into your process. We've got the whole facilitating unbiased decisions. The examples I gave you were things like name blinding, panel decision making, and response-based review. We've got intelligent assessment scoring, which again we have seen can be trained to remove the bias. In some of the examples we've seen that consistency, open-ended answers by black candidates were getting scored worse than those for white candidates, and we were able to correct that bias. And then we showed you the example of the real-time insights into diversity outcomes in your organization and how to benchmark them real-time to actually understand how you're doing. I believe that is my last slide. It really just leaves me to say a big thank you for listening to me, and to open the floor now to any questions, but also to really encourage you, please do connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can ask questions of me that suddenly pop up in your mind in the future, or questions that you maybe don't want to ask in front of the whole audience. Anyhow, my name is Charles Sips. It's been an absolute pleasure. Peter, thanks very much for letting me talk. As I said, I'm really passionate about this. I hope what I've talked about has been illuminating and helps some of you on your journey in enabling your recruiters. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. That was terrific. And I hope all of you are giving Charles a virtual high five, because he's coming from us all the way across the pond from the UK. So it's considerably later there than it is here. And we appreciate your doing that, Charles. We do have a couple of questions here. So before we let you run,
Cool.
Can you just give us some thoughts on what role you think AI is going to have in recruitment over the next 5 years? I mean, we know where we are thanks to your presentation. We sort of understand the state of the art. Where do you think we're going? And in particular, what impact is that going to have on recruiters?
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. Have a very clear vision for what's going to happen. As I said, I see AI as a form of data-driven recruitment. I believe that we are going to have a massive revolution in the way we recruit, and I think it's going to be much better in terms of it's going to be based on data and insights. I think AI and automation will take out a huge amount of the kind of repetitive workload for recruiters. I believe that it will nudge recruiters to make better decisions, and free them from a lot of the kind of administrative burden. I don't know anybody in this world who doesn't have a list of things that they need to do that is about 5 times longer than what they can achieve. So I guess it's my sincere hope that this knocks off that list, dozens and dozens of things that recruiters are asked to do today, and leaves them with the job of engaging with the business, engaging with candidates, understanding what the real needs of the business are, engaging with the candidates to explain what it is that their organization has to offer, and understanding better what the candidates need. At the same time, I hope it allows them to also become much more kind of strategic in their thinking, in terms of selecting the tools that they need going forward in order to achieve their job, rather than stuck in that kind of day-to-day firefighting. So I'm absolutely sure that that's where we will be for some recruiters. I mean, these things take time for different organizations to adopt. But there will absolutely be organizations where, we already have clients where we call it the 2-touch process. They raise a requisition, and then the next thing they do is they feed back on the quality of the interview into the platform. There's no reason why in the future the raising of those requisitions, I mean, the raising of requisitions is very simple today. They just kind of say how many they want. But there's no reason why even some of those steps couldn't be made a lot easier. But if you think about that scenario, you know, the platform is selecting the candidates, scheduling them in for interview. There is, you know, all a recruiter. In fact, it's more of a line manager who's actually saying, we have this position, it's approved, we need to fill it. And you know, what's the recruiter's job there? Well, the recruiter's job was about selecting the right process to select the right quality candidates and making sure that technology and tech stack is in place to allow that incredibly rapid and high quality hiring to occur.
Okay, we've also had another question submitted. I think this relates back to a slide that you were on. Are you able to share some resources or studies that have showed where diversity training has backfired?
Oh, absolutely. If somebody shares their details with me, I can share links to articles and things like that. Absolutely. But, I recently read a book by a Harvard professor who was writing all about this, and she in her book cited loads of studies and references, and I'd be more than happy to go back to my Kindle, and I'm sure I highlighted in my Kindle because I knew I ought to have that at my fingertips. I'm sorry I don't, but I can by all means absolutely share those studies. And she's, you know, she's a really thorough kind of person, so she kind of lays out, you know, the pluses and the minuses is the answer. And I can also happily share that even that article that I was talking about where an organization was being criticized for removing it on the basis of someone's research, and that obviously you know, links to that research too. But yes, I'd be that's what I'm here for. Be delighted to share that. So if somebody just give me the contacts, or I can share that information with TA Tech, and then you guys can share it onwards.
So best way to contact you directly would be through LinkedIn, and they could
absolutely
get the information that way.
That would be kind of really simple. Yeah, just join with me on LinkedIn, say you love that information, and I will share you the copious references I have on it.
Well, one last question before we let you go, and it's related. You know, there was the famous Google situation, but in point of fact, AI machines, if you will, are trained by humans, and we use historical data in most cases to train them. And a lot of that data has bias built into it. So the question is, does AI simply replicate human bias, particularly when it comes to diversity?
Cool. So again, I'll give you a high level answer, but anybody who really is interested in more depth, again, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can share some fantastic piece of tech which kind of will really answer that question for you. So there's a wonderful piece of tech that I can demo to you, which kind of shows AI querying the way we're making decisions today. It first of all kind of queries and understands the way humans are making decisions. Then it presents back whether those factors that are being used actually have any adverse impact. And then it's suggesting a new way of training by looks at those factors that are being used today by humans. It looks at whether those factors actually lead to people who then perform well in business. So it's looking at the quality and essence of, you know, do those factors. If I'm, you know, I imagine I'm using, so the example I can use if somebody looks is this particular example. So it's actually a real example on a real employer, and you can see that they're using the school attended, the university attended, or school, whichever word you want to use, as one of the decision-making factors. And you can also see that they're using the names of past employers, the experience that the people have had, as a decision-making factor. And then the AI is kind of looking at that and going, oh, you know, using that. And then it actually shows how those factors are impacting the selection. In this particular case, the use of those factors is having an adverse impact on the selection of Black and I think it was Asian candidates. And then it goes for, and then it says, okay, well, given, you know, then says, okay, well, how important are those factors? Does actually what the school that somebody worked for and who they've worked for in the past actually drive performance in job? And then it suggests a new way of making decisions that either if those really have no relation to how people perform in jobs, it'll say, I'm not sure why you're using those factors. You'll be better off using these factors. If they do, it then suggests a way of sort of balancing out the different factors to make sure there isn't bias in the process while still retaining that human insight as to what is driving high quality talent. So, I always read those articles, and there are plenty of them. As you said, I've read one, I think, with Amazon's name attached to it. But there are plenty of them where, I guess the example I always say is, if you train a robot to make three-legged giraffes, it'll make three-legged giraffes. Yes, you can train. If you don't know what you're doing, you can definitely train bad practices into AI, the robot. But new techniques now allow us actually to understand, what is biased about human decision making, and make, learn from that without having the bias in it. And I'm really excited by that. And I think that's why I'm such a huge believer in this use of these analytical techniques. I actually think, we'll go from a situation where people are super skeptical and worried about, encoding bias and learning, bad behaviors into it, from a place where, from a legal perspective, you will have to use these kind of tools because they give you insight like we have never had before. And they can give you, insight that learns from history, but also real-time insight as to what's going on, day to day in your decision making, and whether the new approaches the AI has suggested are actually reducing bias, or whether we need to reflect again and make adjustments. So again, sorry for my very long-winded answers, but I'm passionate about this, and I will. There are some beautiful. There's literally a beautiful piece of technology which would really bring this to life. So if somebody is interested, please reach out to me, and I'm happy to kind of take you through the tech and really bring that to life, so you can understand and explain to your organization why this is an absolute must-have.
So Charles, thank you very, very much again. Really appreciate that. And definitely, I think we all learned a lot. So many thanks. We'll let you go.